Hey, how y'all doing? It's Rick Sincere with MTMV Sports, y'all. We are here and thankful to be back in action and here with Mr. Bradford Gillens. He has been covering the South Carolina State Bulldogs since 2002, and you can see I'm already kind of off my game a little bit. I knocked my headphones out of my ear, but but I am happy and excited to be back here in the studio, getting ready to talk some football. Guys, we have been at the Celebration Bowl covering. We just came back from the Birmingham Bowl, so we've been around covering a few different games, but there's no time of the year like the Celebration Bowl. And every time I go, I get a chance to run into my guy, and it's always an awesome pleasure to share some space with you, man, and to share that wonderful occasion with you. But today we're going to get into just talking about South Carolina State and their journey to the Celebration Bowl. So I'm happy to have you here with me today. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Happy to be here. Happy holidays to you and your family. I'm sure things went extremely well, and you're looking forward to a new year and all of the new things that are going to happen for MTMV Sports.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited, and I'm really excited for you. You you've been covering South Carolina State for a while, and you're kind of in the glory days. I mean, people years from now they'll look back at these days and think about how awesome this time is and how beautiful this time has gone for you all. How's it been covering the South Carolina State Bulldogs recently?
Well, recently it's been kind of a whirlwind. It's been a rejuvenation of sorts. Passing with Coach Pugh passing the baton to Coach Berry, him continuing the sustained excellence that everybody has known South Carolina State to be synonymous with. It's he's really kind of come in and hit the ground running, and Bulldog fans are spoiled, and so it's we're a championship or bust kind of fan base, and so he definitely understood the assignment, and thus far, I'd say he's doing a fantastic job.
Man, I often say, and I've said on Twitter, and I said to people who would listen to me, right, that transition from Buddy Pough to Chennis Berry needs to be studied, dissected, and replicated everywhere there's a transition happening, because that transition was handled so beautifully and has resulted in such success. It's been amazing. You were there though on the inside a little bit. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that transition from the legend, right, and Buddy Pough to Chennis Berry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last year of Coach Pugh's season didn't necessarily go the way he would have liked. He didn't finish with the championship, but was able to come off of one in 2021. But it was bittersweet for Bulldog fans because we were saying goodbye to a legend, and we were kind of stepping into the unknown. Even though Chennis Berry was a known commodity, having won and having been extremely successful at Benedict College those previous years, stepping up from Division II to FCS or Division I program uh, sometimes is a daunting task on a coach and his coaching staff. But Coach Berry came in. He really drunk the Kool-Aid. He really got the fans and the fan base reinvigorated with his vision and what he saw for the SC State football team. And it wasn't really about doing anything differently. It's one of those things where they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so he has the luxury of having some giants right in his backyard with Coach Pugh just right down the hallway. I'm sure you've heard him speak so eloquently about that. And then the dean of all HBCU coaches, in my opinion, Willie Jeffries, my fraternity brother. Having both of them at his disposal just to be able to lean on and to glean on, I'm sure made the transition just that much smoother.
How do you feel about the fact that he came in with a lot of success coming from D2 ranks. However, he was so humble, right, in the way that he's going about approaching that. He does talk about all the time leaning on Coach Pugh. How does just from a fan standpoint, how does that make you all feel? And from media, how does that make it look and feel to you when you're covering and talking to him?
Well, it's refreshing because he understands, the legacy and the history of the success that South Carolina State has been able to attain, over the course of, several decades. And so he knew he was going to be stepping into a role where success is not, lack of success is not an option. It's an expectation. And so, it was one of those things where, he had finally gotten his opportunity to be a head coach, had some really great success, at Benedict, and was ready to take on, the next challenge, which was, invariably coming down 35 miles down the road to Orangeburg, South Carolina, to kind of head up a storied program such as South Carolina State. And I'll tell anybody who's willing to listen, it's although we're the smallest university in the MEAC, in the smallest town in the MEAC, we're considered one of the HBCU blue bloods, if you will, to include your Gramblin's, your Southerns, your Tennessee States, your FAMU's, your Jackson States, et cetera. But we oftentimes do it with the least, a fanfare. We're not one of those fan bases that really do a lot of bragging and that kind of thing. We kind of adopted the mantra of speak softly and carry a big stick. Coach Berry, I don't know so much about speaking softly because he's definitely a fiery guy, as I'm sure you know. But the proof is in the pudding. And we're so excited and so overjoyed to have him as our head coach and to be steering our program into 2026 and beyond.
Man, you talk about a fiery guy. He lit us up in the media, bro. Like, okay, I'm gonna just say it here. I'm one of those dudes who was on, right? Those Monday call that times. And I didn't always get a question in the Coach Berry. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I sure feel bad about it. He lit into the media.
He definitely let it be known. That was something he was holding in for a very long time. And so, to finally get to the point where he could kind of exhale and just kind of let it all out, I thought was extremely refreshing and quite amusing as well.
And I ain't gonna lie, I have a really valid excuse for why, but he wasn't trying to hear all that. So, I saw that and it gave me a clue about his personality. I mean, I've been, covering him for a while. I've seen him and I got a chance to interview him at last year's Celebration Bowl. And I've talked to him for multiple times, right? Even saw him a few different times, which we'll talk about later. Saw him at the East West Shrine Bowl, got a chance to interview him there too. Awesome dude, man. But just from a coaching standpoint, like from what you've been able to see, give us some markers of his coaching prowess. Talk to us a little bit about his coaching style and what has it been like to have him leading the fray.
Well, first and foremost, he's an offensive line guy, and he'll tell you every chance he gets an opportunity to tell you that he's an O-line guy, and he understands that while skill position players might sell tickets and they're the flash. The true games are won in the trenches on both sides, both on the offensive side and on the defensive side. And so, he really came in and wanted to lay a strong foundation, making sure that, both of those lines were very solidified. In addition to that, Coach Berry is one of those guys where it's easy to play for him because he makes you want to run through a brick wall for him. He's a guy who kind of walks the walk and talks the talk for sure. And he invests in the kids. He invests in the kids, not only as student athletes, but as people and as, cultivating them into being, young men and productive members of society. The football team's always out in the community, even if it's like turkey giveaways, if they're doing, serving the staff for lunch, the groundskeepers, et cetera, all of those people, just to show everybody that, everybody's appreciated and everybody's a part of the success. Although he gets the headlines and he gets the name recognition and notoriety, he truly does appreciate everybody who has a say in kind of the outfit of how South Carolina State goes about its business from week in and week out. And so, it's really easy to want to play for a guy like him when the guy truly cares just as much about your talent, as much as he does about you becoming a man and you becoming a productive member of society. I think if you ask him to a man, what's his greatest accomplishment? It's his team's GPA rate. There, you have a 3.2 grade point average across the entire team. You've got over 25 to 30 kids with a 3.0 grade point average, and you've got 8 to 9 kids with a 4.0 grade point average. So it's not just one of those situations where we're talking about, athletic prowess on the field or on the gridiron. We're talking about, really being able to show it in the classroom as well.
Man, that's one thing. You started off by saying that he'll have you run through a brick wall for him, right? And that's absolutely true. Just talking to him for 5 or 10 seconds, you can catch that from him. But the thing that I caught so much from him is just how much his how much his players sound like him when you interview them, right? Like some of them really sound like him when you talk to him, because he's taking these mantras and he always has catchphrases and these sayings and these acronyms that he instills in his players, and they come back and they give it to you. They can spill it for you. They'll say it even when they're running around after the Celebration Bowl. They're still shouting his things, right? Like over and over again. And I love that. One of the things that he said after that tirade, they were like, "Yo, the boys got to go." He was like, "Why? These my boys. They love me."
That's right. That's right.
And I love that about him. And talking to his players before the Celebration Bowl, you can hear that in them. I love that, and I love the fact that he has them out in the community. And you mentioned something I thought was really cool. You talked about the players serving the staff. Tell us a little bit more about that. And what does that say about him, his leadership?
Well, it just says to him that, nobody's bigger than the other person, and so he understands that. I'm sure you've heard the whole adage, "It takes a village to raise a child," and so he really comes from that ilk where he sees everybody as a person, and what he's trying to instill into his kids is, be grateful for the things that you do have. If there are opportunities where we can, to be an example of be a shining light to others, then we certainly want to do so. And we want to show, those people who work hard for us every day, how much we appreciate them. So if it means, it's us going out and having a fish fry for them, or, or something to that effect, or going out into the community and just telling the community, "Hey guys, we can't do this without you. We love," but you'll always hear him talk about how Bulldog fans travel and how no game feels like a road game because, Bulldog Nation is going to show up loud and proud. That is absolutely true. And that's because of the foundation that Coach Willie Jeffrey set, coming to Orangeburg and then, making a life in Orangeburg. Coach Buddy Pough, being from Orangeburg, leaving, coming back to Orangeburg and making a life in Orangeburg and really entrenching himself into the community. So it's almost second nature if you're the coach at South Carolina State, that, the school is an extension of the community. And so, we definitely are out there, or the team is definitely out there and, serving the community and serving their constituents. And in turn, those folks show up for them when they need them the most.
Man, I love that. I didn't know how closely knit the community was. I do know that if you're in the Celebration Bowl, I don't know how many of the other teams showing up, but I know the South Carolina State fans are showing up. And you get a chance to talk to just the fans, and you can hear how much they love that football team. And now I'm getting a little bit of an insight on why the love is so legit and so real. It's not just about football, so much of a community connection. I want to talk a little bit about football now, though. I want to know a little bit about what happened going into last season, right? Last season, South Carolina State was coming off of a loss in the Celebration Bowl. It was a bit of a devastating loss, right? So they lost the Celebration Bowl last year. Coming out of that and going into this next year, what were some of the things that you saw change as they prepared for their second run at that title?
Well, I'll have to be honest with you. There were a lot of question marks coming into this season. As I'm sure you remember, we lost top 3 receivers to the transfer portal. So we lost, Enosh Carter, Caden High, and Justin Smith Brown, all of which were 1, 2, and 3 in the MEAC and receiving in 2024. So to lose that kind of offensive firepower and have to essentially not even rebuild because you don't have time to rebuild when the expectations are so high, you have to essentially reload. And so, going in, making smart decisions in the transfer portal, being really intentional about the freshmen that we brought in who could come in and make an immediate impact. Those were some of the things. What kind of some of the recipes that he used for his success. But again, nobody knew what this team was going to be. We knew they were going to be extremely well coached just because that's a hallmark of Coach Berry and his coaching staff. But we knew it would take time for this team because there were so many newcomers, 44 transfers, 12, new players, 12 high school players. We knew it was going to take some time for them to gel and for them to, become a cohesive unit before we started that stretch run into conference play on the road to the Celebration Bowl.
You mentioned so many new transfer players. Talk to me a little bit about how you think, Coach was able to get that buy-in because of these transfer. And I ask this question a lot to coaches because it seems like a daunting task to get people to come in and buy into your system when they're just coming in and having to be, introduced to the way you want to do things.
Well, I think it's easy when you can bring a kid in for a visit and you can point to your press box and you can showcase your 19 MEAC championships, all that are prominently displayed above Oliver C. Dawson Bulldog Stadium, as well as your 2021 celebration, bowl. So kids know that they're coming into a program that's used to sustained excellence. And so they know if they come in and they join and they understand the mission and they give full buy-in, that at the end of the day in December, they're probably going to be in a situation competing for a championship. And so that makes it a really easy sell. In addition to that, all of the things that I said about Coach Berry previously about how, he wants to cultivate not only your athletic prowess, but, helping you become a better man and all of those good things. Those are things that stand out to not only kids, but those are the things that stand out to parents who are shipping their kids off to, somewhere they may have never been. And so, to have a coach like that, who's really kind of a father figure and a mentor, makes those parents feel that much more at ease about sending their kid to South Carolina State. As you said, it's a very close-knit community. It's a family environment. We treat everybody like family. We've never met a stranger. And so all of those things are part of the recruiting efforts that we use. And that's kind of the secret sauce, right? We may not have the big city. We may not have, all of the lights and all of those good things. But what we can tell you is that when you're here, you're going to be treated as family. Everybody's going to look out for you to a man, and you're going to graduate and get your degree.
That I love. One of the things that I did see while watching South Carolina State, of course, this season is just this, as you hear somewhat of a quarterback controversy. We saw that play out in the celebration, but not really controversy, right? We just saw a difference in level of play. But there was some competition there. You talked about, reloading. There was some competition there between Ryan Stubblefield and Willie Atkins. Talk to me a little bit about how that initial decision was made to go with Atkins.
Well, if you take a look at the first several games of the year, South Carolina State was kind of playing some really close games. Had some hiccups, particularly the Charleston Southern game comes to mind. The Wofford game, although the Bulldogs won, literally there was one touchdown scored in that game, and that was within 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. And so, Yeah, it was one of those situations where it wasn't that coach was down on Ryan Stubblefield. It was just that he felt as though um, there needed to be a different voice in the huddle. And so for the first half of the season, I don't know if you remember, but Ryan Stubblefield would play for us for a series or a stretch, and then Atkins would come in and play for a series or a stretch. And again, it's one of those old phrases where if you have to play two quarterbacks, then you don't have a quarterback. And so I think that was an auditioning phase. I think that was an opportunity for Billy to come in, kind of get his feet wet, because he's coming in as a transfer from James Madison. And so, he doesn't really have the nuance of the offense as well formed as Ryan does, who had been in the program for a year prior to that, and actually saw some action in the Celebration Bowl against Jackson State. And so Ryan came in as the incumbent. But once we got into the middle of the season, it was clear that Billy was the best choice to lead the helm, or particularly at that time. And so once Coach made the decision to go with Billy and stick with him, Bulldogs went on a run. And then not for nothing, but Ryan talked about it in the previous podcast that he did, where they always stayed encouraged. They were always, each other's cheerleaders. And so even though Ryan lost his job, he never lost his faith. And he knew he was just one play away, from having to be thrust back into that spotlight. And lo and behold, what would you know? The biggest game of the season, Billy gets hurt and Ryan has to come in, and Ryan comes in and performs marvelously. En route to Celebration Bowl MVP honors, and helping Coach Berry bring back the trophy to Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Yo, how are they able to do that? I often wonder that, because I don't know, as my own self, I don't know how I'm built like. I don't know if I'm built like that enough to where, I can lose my job, right? And then just go cheer for the other person and be that person and just become a teammate. Talk to me a little bit about what that means and how were they able to get that accomplished? Or is it more so about Ryan himself, right? Where he was able to kind of lose his job and still keep the chemistry in the team and not lose it?
Well, you have to remember, Ryan had been faced with that situation the year previously, where Eric Phoenix was the starter, and there were situations where he had to come in on spot duty and maybe be the change of pace quarterback, and give the team a spark when the offense may have been sputtering. So it wasn't anything that was foreign to him. When Billy came in, and your coach was always, encouraging. His quarterback's coach was always encouraging, saying, "Hey, it doesn't mean that we're down on you. It doesn't mean that we don't think you're a player. It just means that, Billy gives us the best opportunity to win right now. But all that means is that you're one play away from being right back to where you started." And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So kudos to Ryan for being able to have the wherewithal, to be able to have the mental fortitude in order to be able to work through that. Because much like you said, I don't know a lot of people, publicly they'll say all of the right things. Privately, it's probably a different story. But no, he was extremely supportive of Billy the entire time.
So that we talked about the season and how they kind of got into this thing where Billy is the guy, right? Like Atkins is the guy, and he's moving forward and they're doing well. While South Carolina State, I know they went through some stuff, and I even heard in the post-game press conference where they're like, where this whole thing turn around, like where you really become a close-knit team. And they mentioned some of the games that you mentioned earlier, where they face some adversity, they had to become a team after those things, right? It really started to gel together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during that whole thing, right, there's an emergence of these other giants. Like we're seeing something that we haven't ever seen. Now, I've never seen it, right? Because I haven't been covering HBCU sports that long. You've been covering it for a while, but I ain't never seen Delaware State being mentioned anywhere at any point for any reason outside of just, hey, I got to play this team, or they're another team in the conference. However, this year things changed. It was much different. You saw the emergence of a new giant, and then there's the consistent, amazing, Trey Oliver, who's still doing his thing over at North Carolina Central. So you got these two competing things coming up, right? Talk to us about the emergence of those giants, and how did South Carolina fans start to feel during that time? How's media kind of handling that, knowing that those challenges were coming?
Well, to speak to the media, I think you can speak better than I can about how the media handled that, which was kind of the impetus of Coach Berry's soliloquy, I'll say, at the beginning of his press conference. But yeah, I mean, Delaware State came in, and kudos to head coach Deshaun Jackson, who, in my opinion, should have been the MEAC Coach of the Year. But I understood why Coach Berry won it, for all of the things that he had to overcome with all of the players leaving and all of those good things. But no, Delaware State, Jackson did a marvelous job of turning the program around. One of the things that he did that I thought was extremely smart was he recruited his backyard. And when I say his backyard, I mean where he grew up. So he gave kids an opportunity to leave California and come out to the East Coast, where he had inroads with coaches and friends and the like. In addition to that, he was able to bring on some really, really smart coaches, and one of which, as I'm sure you know, Delaware State led the MEAC in rushing, and we're in top 5 in FCS, and a lot of that is attributed to former Washington Redskin Clinton Portis, who's their running backs coach. And so when you have guys like that are imparting wisdom on you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, it's hard, for that not to be contagious, and it's hard not for you not to believe. In addition to that, he was able to secure, getting the game with Norfolk State at Lincoln Financial Field, having 46,000 people in the Link on a Thursday night for an HBCU football game is almost unheard of. So with that, continue to win, and as they continue to win, fans started to take notice, particularly Bulldog fans. But we knew that was the last game of the season. And as I'm sure just like Coach Berry says, we always take a 1-0 mindset, so you can never look too far ahead. You can only play who's in front of you at that time or on that week. But as far as North Carolina Central goes, just kind of switching gears, Trey's been a pros pro. He's been a heck of a coach. The entire time he's been there, he's really come in and brought stability to that program, and they're a consistent contender. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, who I expected to meet to play for the MEAC title, it would have been North Carolina Central, and much was thought of the same way by MEAC coaches, SIDs, and the media. As South Carolina State was picked first, and North Carolina Central was picked second. So everybody thought that would be the de facto championship game until Delaware State just continued to win, kind of stayed under the radar. It's really interesting that their seasons and Prairie View seasons kind of paralleled each other. Two first year head coaches, 2 coaches just kind of flying under the radar. Everybody's expecting Jackson State to be there, and lo and behold, Prairie View comes in and kind of pulls the rug out from under them. Delaware State had the same opportunity to do so last game of the season in their place, and that Bulldog tenacity just kind of showed up. And the team was focused and prepared to go 1-0 and finish the job.
And they did finish the job. Man, I do have a few things to ask based on what you just said. You talked about Deshaun Jackson should have been the coach of the year.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, why should he have been named the coach of the year over Chennis Berry?
The previous two seasons, Delaware State won a combined total of 2 games. So in to go from roughly 2-22 to, you turn that around and you win eight games. That's saying something. That's not just a flash in the pan. That's an institutional change. In addition to that, the Delaware State University Athletics Department has totally gotten behind Coach Jackson in terms of infrastructure, facilities, et cetera. There's a long-term plan there. So it definitely, things are looking bright for Delaware State. On the field specifically, though, just the fact that, Delaware State was picked to finish last in the MEAC and they finished second. That in itself, while I give credence to winning when the expectation is winning, there's something about that there's something about being able to turn around a program, particularly one that have been in the doldrums for quite a while, to bring them back to, within one game of actually playing for the HBCU national championship. I thought he did a fantastic job. So he would have definitely gotten my vote, or at the very least, we should have had co-coaches of the year.
Hey, and I really, well, actually, no, I'm with you 100%. I feel you 100%. When I saw the announcement made, I was like, "Ooh, I get it," right? Like, nobody in the room can say they ever beat this man, right? You can't say you beat Coach Berry. Like, no MEAC coach can be like, "Oh, I beat him." No, you haven't. So nobody's beat this man. So yeah, of course, right? He should be the coach of the year too. But man, you can't deny what we saw with Coach Jackson. Everything you said, I'm 100% behind. I didn't think about, and this is what you brought to my mind that I didn't think about, which is co-coach of the year, right? I see one over the other, but you're right. This should have been a co-coach of the year situation. And I didn't vote in this particular case, but if I would have, it would have been a Deshaun Jackson vote. I'm not gonna lie, right? But at the same time, I who can deny the excellence of Coach Berry? I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So even though I felt like you felt, there would be no, tirade from me or article from me, nothing like that, just to congratulate Coach Berry on a phenomenal season, right? Or phenomenal 2 seasons, right? But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. The article should have been, this should have been a co-coach of the year situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. Of the 11 championships that Phil Jackson won during his time in the NBA, I think he won coach of the year maybe twice. And the reasoning for that is because there was always somebody who had a bigger improvement than Jackson. Jackson was expected to win. He was expected to have his team in the finals competing for championships, as opposed to a guy like a Larry Brown or, something to that effect, where they feel like he did more with less. And so it's one of those situations. I mean, I don't fault Coach Berry. He's a victim of his own success in that instance. I'm glad he got the award. I don't have any qualms with him getting the award, but I just thought the more deserving coach, or like I said, it could have been co-coaches, and we could have come to a happy meeting.
One of the things that you brought to my mind earlier that I truly didn't give a lot of credence to was just the fact that there was so much turnover and so much loss from South Carolina State as well, right? So even though he just had a great season, right? Like, there were some people who kind of felt that, that's freshman luck or it's really good, right? It's really good. I don't know if he'll be able to sustain it. And they're, you don't always know if they're coming back to be the champions again, right? I love the system from the beginning. I saw the system and I can see that, being something that was great. However, you didn't know for sure that he would have that sustained success. And so him overcoming some of the things that you mentioned earlier does give some credence to him winning Coach of the Year as well. But like you said, I'm down with the co-coach of the year for sure. Now, we're kind of coming to the end of the stretch here. But now we get to the celebration, right? It's time to celebrate. Like, you win the MEAC again, right? And now you're heading into Celebration Bowl, seemingly at first like there's going to be a rematch, right? I'm like I was getting ready to write it, right? Rematch of the century.
It was penciled in.
Yeah, it was penciled in. I had it kind of already thought about. I'm like, oh, is this a code dynasty we're looking at here? Right? We're looking at like the Thriller in Manila. Like it's the whole thing, right? I'm thinking about
That's right.
all those things. But wait a minute, hold up. Here comes
Coach Jackson
PV.
said, "No, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir."
here comes PV, and he's singing and he's walking through the crowd, right? And he's doing this whole thing, and he's telling the whole world, "I'm gonna be here on this day." I'm going to Atlanta. He's singing, he's doing the whole thing, right? And his prediction comes true, and they pull the upset for me of the last few years, one of the biggest upsets. Beats Jackson State, and now PV's on their way to the Celebration Bowl. When South Carolina State catches wind of that, what's the first thought in that fan base? What's the first thought around the city?
I think if I'm being honest, I'd say the first thing amongst our fans was probably let down. And let down because they wanted to exact their revenge against Jackson State for losing in such bad form the year prior. Definitely wanted. It was, the season had all the makings of these two teams doing it again in Atlanta. For which would have been the third time at that point if you count Coach Prime's 2021 appearance. And so, everybody was expecting it. I know Jackson State folks were expecting it. Hotels were selling like hotcakes. There was just this buzz around HBCU land that, South Carolina State versus Jackson State, the rubber match, who's going to pull it out. And so, but kudos to Prairie View, for kind of crashing the party. Coach Jackson and his staff did a phenomenal job of pulling off the upset. And so, it was just one of those things where once we learned that it was Prairie View, then we had to turn our attention to them. Now, I'm not talking about the team per se, because they have been watching tape of both schools. Because you always want to be prepared. I mean, even if that means being over prepared, right? So they knew what Prairie View brought to the table, schematically, both offensively and defensively. But from a fan's perspective, I think if you would ask them, they definitely expected. I'm not going to say want. They expected Jackson State to be there, but we found the Prairie View fans to be nothing but hospitable. They're just good old country Texas folk, just like we are from South Carolina. And it was a really pleasant surprise, and more importantly than anything else, and interestingly enough, we didn't know a lot about them. That was the first game that both South Carolina State and Prairie View had played against each other, and so this was the first time this happened. And for this to be for all the marbles, there was a little bit of uncertainty, but Bulldogs felt as though their experience in the game, kind of understanding the pageantry and all of the ancillary events that go around it, being able to kind of handle that emotionally, while also compartmentalizing those things and still being ready to take on the task at hand, to go win the Celebration Bowl. Whereas if it's your first time, you might get kind of caught in all of the hoopla that surrounds bowl games, and because it's such a special affair, and how John Grant and the ESPN events and Celebration Bowl team present it, and so from that perspective, from South Carolina State's perspective, you're taking a look at it and they're thinking this is a business trip for Prairie View. This is icing on the cake, because quite honestly, I don't know if we thought we'd be there, but here we are.
Yeah, and you shocked me, and I don't know if you can see it on my face, but you shocked me when you said let down, right? I thought the initial thought for South Carolina State would be, let's round up these rings, like, you know what I mean? Like, like, we got this. We thought it was gonna be super hard, but it's not gonna be that hard. We got this, right? We playing against Prairie View. And I thought that may be the thought, right? But when you said let down, And then I'm glad you came back with the why, right? Because of the revenge factor. And I didn't factor that in. I didn't know how much there was this need to get revenge, right, for the loss from the year before that. So I'm glad you brought that into perspective.
Well, you gotta think about this. You just said previously that no coach in the MEAC has beat Chennis Berry. There's only one coach that's beat him in that outside of HBCU, and that's TC Taylor. And so, with that being said, yes, the revenge factor was definitely, was kind of on the fans' mind. And, when you come from a championship pedigree and you lose that, much like Ric Flair says, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So, that was kind of the reasoning behind that.
Yo, okay. So you come in, you're going up against PV, like you said, and I gotta ask this question too before I go into this next phase. You said that you meet the PV fans and they're just good old country folk. They're nice and pleasant and all that stuff. We know Jackson ain't like that, right?
There's some good Jackson folks. There's some I like to call them let's go with opinionated.
No, I love them. I love them because of the fire. I love them because of the passion, right? But I know they ain't coming with the, hey, it's nice to meet you guys.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
It's not that. So going into this game, just interacting that week of the Celebration Bowl, did you miss that? Did you miss that Jackson State feeling? Or was it better?
For interestingly enough, and I'm so glad that they did. A lot of Jackson State folks still showed up, and came to the game and represented, and were there to cheer on the SWAC. And so it was still good to see them. We still got enough of that banter, kind of enough of that banter in where, the conversation flipped from, we're going to win it this year to we'll see you guys next year because we'll definitely, we'll be back. So, they're never at a loss for words. And so it was fun. It was fun interacting with them. And then it was also fun interacting with the Prairie View folks who were coming for the first time, who, we're excited about the bowl game atmosphere. And it's kind of like seeing a kid open a toy for Christmas, like the newness, especially if it's not something that you've experienced before. And that's not shade. I promise it's not. It's just one of those.
I know it's not. I know it's not.
Yeah, it
didn't sound like shade.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, this is new, this is fun, and you could see the excitement on their faces. And again, like I said, very hospitable. But we got enough of the trash talk. They're proud fans now. Don't get me wrong. They didn't come to lay down. They definitely came confident in their team, especially after the Jackson State win. It was like, well, if we could beat Jackson, and Jackson just blew these guys' doors off last year, who's to say we can't do the same thing, this weekend? Nobody's expected us to be successful or to win the way that we did, outside of Prairie View, Texas this year. And we've been proving the doubters wrong all year long. And so what's one more game? And if for nothing else, the first half proved that they came out and they played really, really loose. And you could kind of tell South Carolina State was really tight.
I was just about to say that. We look, you just mentioned, right? They could do this, they could do that. And they came in and they start punching people in the mouth from the opening kickoff.
Yes.
Right. And it was really that intense. And it looked like it was gonna be a long day for South Carolina State. I'm not gonna lie to you. Up in the booth, you were there. In the booth, you heard the whispers, you heard the stuff that was going on in the booth. Like it just looked like it was going to be an entirely, horrible day to be a South Carolina State Bulldogs fan. Now, at halftime, because we're in the same place and they're putting out new food, right? We're upstairs and we're having a good old time in the media room. But you're up there too. While that's happening, how are you feeling? How are you feeling personally? Right? at halftime. How do you think the fans are feeling during that time? What's happening for South Carolina State at half, knowing that we're in this big game? We're kind of here knowing that we're the more experienced team, we're the more experienced fan base. We're, supposed to kind of walk away from this, a winner, right?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that feel in that moment?
I would say our fans were still extremely hopeful. We had kind of seen this several times over, being battle tested earlier in the year with a lot of those games, and so there were often times where South Carolina State had to come back to win the game. I'm thinking about the Charleston Southern game, even though they fell short. That was one game where Charleston Southern was absolutely dominating in the first half, and South Carolina State kind of found their footing and really made it a close game, there at the end. Same thing against North Carolina A&T. The North Carolina Central game where we go up big and we go up big in the first half, only for them to erase it in the entire in the second quarter, and then take the lead into the third. Only then for us to go on the dramatic drive at the end, and Josh Shaw scored the game sealing touchdown. So Bulldog fans had seen it before, so they knew it. They knew what could happen. I think what they didn't know is that Billy was out, because there was never an announcement made. You just kind of saw Ryan come in, and so I think a lot of fans were confused and perplexed, thinking that Billy had been benched for Ryan, not really understanding that Billy was injured, in fact, and that Ryan had to come in. But we knew it only took one play. It's interestingly enough how ironic things are and how things kind of work in sync. We were losing to Jackson State in 2021, and Shedeur forced a fumble on Shedeur Sanders right at about the 5-yard line, right at about the same place that the gentleman from Prairie View fumbled in the third quarter. And from there, once we got the first score, and it's early in the third quarter, then Bulldog fans are rejuvenated now, and they're saying, okay, listen, we're only down 2 scores, and there's roughly a half left, so we can definitely turn this thing around. And before you knew it, the game was tied. And once the game was tied, we were absolutely confident that we would be able to go in and win the game. We expected that our experience would carry the day, and it absolutely did.
You were, and I didn't know how confident you all were, right? And I'm glad to hear that you all were confident. I felt like the players were saying the same thing, right? Like they just never lost faith. And coach talked about just going into the locker room, just letting them know, hey, it's a 60-minute game and we've only played 30, right? There's a whole nother 30 that we still have to play. And you came in and erased the lead so fast. It was like, boom, boom, boom. It's a tie ball game. I was like, yo, that's crazy. Talk to us about what went into that. Like, who were the major players, right? Was Ryan, definitely, right? But there's some more players that we need to talk about. So talk to us about the wide receivers, the running backs. Like, talk to us about the players that you've seen all through the year and how they were used in those moments.
So I think in those instances, I call those championship moments. And we had already spoke about the fact that we had a lot of newcomers. So, while Prairie View was new to the Celebration Bowl, we had a lot of players this was new to them as well, being on this stage. Ryan was fortunate enough to be able to have 2 players on his team that had kind of been mainstays with the program and had been in the Celebration Bowl before, in both Nigel Johnson. And I'd definitely be remiss if I didn't talk about Jordan Smith, who just kind of became his Mr. Reliable. It almost seemed like every time there was a big play needed, or every time there was if you needed 5, he'd get you 6. If you needed 12, he'd get you 15. And so, he and Ryan, and Ryan calls him J2, just kind of, they just had that connection going. And once that happened, you could just kind of see the magic happening on the field, and you just kind of expected if there was a big play to be made, it was going to be made by Smith.
And I love that they think together they call themselves Orange Juice. And and I think that's so cool, man. I love the connection between those two, and to see that connection matter so much in that moment. I think the article that we wrote was called like Orange Juice Deliver the Championship to South Carolina State. And so it was something of that regard. Like if I go back and look, and I love the fact that they came together for that great moment. Now let's talk legacy.
Mm-hmm.
They win a championship, and you said earlier that you all are, I'm not gonna say greedy fan base, but you there's a standard, right? There's a standard. There's something that you're expecting consistently. And Chennis Berry comes in and delivers, just like Buddy delivered, right? Mm-hmm. He delivers a championship to your fan base. What does this mean for his legacy, for Chennis Berry's legacy? What does it say about his legacy moving forward?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. It etches him as one of the most successful, at least early on, one of the more successful coaches, in SC State history. For his legacy, I don't know if you noticed how emotional he was, kind of at the end of the game. A lot of that was the fact that he had just won the championship. More of that was the fact that he had finally gotten the monkey off his back. And so if you take it back to Benedict, had won the SIAC twice, went to the Division II playoffs and couldn't pull off a win there. Then he leaves Benedict, then he comes to South Carolina. He comes to South Carolina State, wins every game in the MEAC, goes to the Celebration Bowl, but couldn't pull it off in the Celebration Bowl. So now those whispers, as it's 21-0, are starting to become murmurs. And what's being said and bandied about is, this is the guy. Is this the guy that can take us over the hump? And he had to be thinking about that as well. All of his predecessors have been champions, as far as coaches, Coach Pough and Coach Jeffries. And of course, when you're in this profession, you want to be the best. And in order for him to be respected as one of the best, in HBCU coaching and in college football, for that matter, because I don't want to just limit him to just, HBCU football. You got to win in the postseason. You got to win when it counts. And so for him to be able to essentially exercise those demons, and get the win in such spectacular fashion. I mean, we're talking about, 4 overtimes. Who would have thunk it, right? Prairie View had a chance to win. Their kicker misses the field goal. Man, when I tell you our fan base was praying, and I'm telling you, Coach Berry was praying too. Like, there was a whole lot of Jesus at Mercedes-Benz Stadium that day. You can believe it. But no, what it does overall, man, is it really just solidifies him as, one of the top coaches in FCS football.
Now, there was a whole lot of Jesus. We were coach was trying to get to the podium, and I was with Miss Marva, who runs our Throne Room podcast. And she is a devout Christian too. And he's getting to the podium. She's trying to get to him. He's like, "Coach, how do you feel?" He's like, "Praise Jesus, I gotta go." Like, he said, "I'm so thankful to God." He said, "Oh, well, talk to us about God." That she was trying to tell him. Well, how did God? How did you feel about God? I love God. Thank you so much. I gotta go. So he was trying to get his best, but even though he was trying to push through and get to the thing, he was still very focused on his faith. And we were talking to one of the players. The players were like. And she was like, talk to us about this win. He was like, "It's about God. It's about God. Thank you, Lord." And he said it multiple times. And she was like, "Yeah, tell us about your performance. Not about me. It's about God." And I loved and that was across the board. I've seen them in prayer services throughout the course of the season. I've seen them singing in those prayer services across the
Mm-hmm.
season. So when you say it was a lot of God in that place, I believe he was definitely in that place. And I'm happy that it turned out that way. And I'm thankful that you talked about the legacy. Quick question: was it a touchdown or no? Tell me. Was it
Well,
did score
all
count or
right,
no?
all right, all right, all
Give
right.
me the real.
First and foremost, um, the ruling on the field was that it was a successful 2-point conversion. There wasn't video, there wasn't conclusive evidence to show that the call should have been changed. Number one. Number two, I think more importantly than anything else, the referees weren't going to make that call at that juncture. They weren't going to make that call at that juncture of the game to overturn a 2-point conversion, not because it wasn't the right thing to do, but because Prairie View also had an opportunity to possess the ball again. And so essentially all they had to do was score on their 2-point try, and we go into a fifth overtime. If that would have been to determine the game, I think they look at it a little harder. But I think because Prairie View had an opportunity to possess the ball short thereafter, then they made the call that they made. But I would be I can understand where Prairie View fans are a little miffed about that. But all I can say to that is that the title rests, rules, and abides at 300 College Street, Northeast Orangeburg, South Carolina, and it's not going anywhere.
Yo, okay. And we'll wrap it up here. And thank you. You've been amazing, man. If I'd have knew that we could do this, we'd have did this a long time ago.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I didn't even know this was a thing. I promise you I didn't, but I'm thankful. So because of, I want to know, because I think you've been with the team for so long. You have such amazing insight on what's going on with the team and why things are the way they are. Now we're heading into this next phase. This is after the championship, like dynasty type of building, dynasty type of talk here. If he wins the third MEAC championship in a row, I feels like a dynasty to me. Even if he doesn't win the Celebration Bowl, but if he goes and wins that again, right, then we're definitely talking about a dynasty. Talk to me a little bit about what's next for South Carolina State.
We continue to win, but we definitely understand that there are, everybody. It's an arms race. Everybody is working to get better. Southern just hired Marshall Falk. FAMU just hired Quinn Gray. So you've definitely got HBCUs are going about the business of college athletics in a much different way than I've seen from 20 years ago. Like, they're really investing into facilities. They're really investing in the coaches. They're really investing into, more importantly, assistant coaching pools. They're investing in their infrastructure. So the field is only going to get tougher, because as long as you're winning, you're the hunted, you're not the hunter, right? And so you always have to make sure that you're staying sharp, and that your eyes are dotted and your T's are crossed. But I expect Coach Berry and his staff to do exactly what they've done year after year, and that's go out and find the best possible kids for our program, where they can come in and they can continue the winning ways and sustained excellence that we've been able to enjoy since the early 1970s.
I love it. Do you think at any point this becomes, I know it's already NIL deal, right? There's already NIL influence. Do you think it overshadows what you're trying to do this offseason?
As far as what?
Do you think like the I think other colleges are going to start paying. I mean, they're already paying, right? NIL is already a thing, right? But I think now there's more money coming directly from schools, right? Do you feel in any way that impacts the HBCU space, and does it impact South Carolina State specifically because you can lose certain players to the transfer portal, or more players to the transfer
Well,
portal?
it's something we've been experiencing since NIL has kind of come about. But for every kid that you lose, you have an opportunity to bring in somebody else who deserves a chance to be able to perform at this level. And so it's really just kind of understanding where you are in the overall grand scheme of things. You understand that you're going to lose kids to the Power Fours and to the G5s because their resources might be, greater than yours. But in those instances, that gives you an opportunity to be able to pull from other FCS schools, from D2 schools, et cetera, and continue your winning ways. So it's really just about understanding where you are, going after those kids who are going to be best for your program and who are going to give you the best opportunity to be successful in short order, while also making sure that we're making really smart moves when we're offering scholarships to high school kids, so that they can come in and immediately be successful and hit the ground running.
Yo, thank you very much. I appreciate your time here. Yo, where can people find you, your opinions, your stuff, your insight? Like, where can people find your stuff? Just so they can get more of this throughout the course of the season and this offseason.
Well, I'm always around. I'm also a contributing writer to HailWildcats.com. That's HailWildcats.com, where I cover, interestingly enough, Bethune-Cookman University football as well. So just jack of all trades, master of none. You can also follow me on Twitter at Czar of the Telestrator, CZARTELESTRATOR on Twitter. Always love chopping it up to talk sports and all of those good things. So,
and we appreciate your time, man. Listen, if y'all stayed throughout the course of this video, I appreciate you. Thank you. This has been a phenomenal journey, and it's been a journey. We talked about from the very beginning to the Celebration Bowl, the journey of the champions, the South Carolina State Bulldogs. So it's been awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to doing this again.
I'm Alani Martin,
yes, All right,
a proud athlete from Dillard University, and I was chosen as one of the March GCAC Women's Track and Field Athlete of the Week. On the track, I've claimed the title of the #1 hammer thrower in the GCAC. It's not just about the distances thrown, it's about the journey to get there. I train relentlessly, both in the classroom and on the field. Running, lifting, studying, every drop of sweat brings me closer to being my best self. When I'm at my peak, nothing can hold me back. But it's not just my story. There are thousands of HBCU athletes out there with their own dreams, challenges, and victories. We pour our hearts into every competition, fueled by passion and determination. Thanks to MTMV Sports, our stories find a voice. Our journeys, our struggles, and our moments of magic are shared with the world. MTMV Sports doesn't just broadcast our achievements, they celebrate our spirit and our community. Join us in celebrating the heart of HBCU athletics. Follow MTMV Sports on all social media platforms and download the MTMV Sports app today. Let's make every moment count together.